Today we're going to be doing this lovely red pepper in Polychromos color pencils on a Strathmore 400 series Bristol paper. I've sketched out my outline in graphite and now I'm going over it with a kneaded eraser to lighten it up so we don't get so much of that graphite showing through, and I'll explain that in a minute. Normally what I do is I sketch the drawing out and then I transfer the image and resketch it in a colored pencil so that you don't get the graphite marks. And I didn't do that on this one, and I kind of regret it because I had to go back in with my electric eraser and kind of get rid of some of those darker graphite marks. You want to really, when you erase it, really just have a really hint of an outline on the paper, and that way it won't mess with the colors that you're putting down of the colored pencil. It can tend to muddy it up and show through on your lighter colors. So I've given you the color chart in the beginning. You guys can screenshot it and have that for your reference, but I'll also put all of those in the description box below the video. So I'm going to be putting up the colors as I'm using them, and these are just the main colors. You can add a lot more depth to it by adding more shades of green, reds if you like, but you can refer to that sheet that I put in the beginning for all the colors that I used. At this stage in the drawing, in the beginning, we just want to lay down our colors with a really light layer of color pencil on the paper and color map. So we're just going to put in the representation of all of our tones that are going to be in the finished drawing. So we're going in with the light orange here, the light cadmium orange, and we're just going to give a nice light coat on our paper. Now we're using the smooth Bristol paper, so you want to keep nice sharp pencils and use really light layers. And basically this paper is going to allow you, if you use light layers, to put a ton of layers on top of one another to get a really rich finished effect. And this way also, as you're going along, the colors will blend with each other and you won't have to really burnish or go in with a colorless blender or anything like that. So with the Polychromos, it's an oil-based color pencil. They really blend beautifully and stay vibrant and look beautiful. To keep my pencils really sharp, I use the Derwent Super Point manual helical sharpener. I know that's a mouthful, but it gives me the best point on my color pencils out of anything that I've tried. It's really fabulous. And you want to keep your pencils really sharp during the whole length of the video, or the whole length of the drawing rather. And the reason for this is you don't want to indent the paper, you don't want to ruin the tooth of the paper because you want to put so many layers on. You want to keep each layer light and they will blend with each other as you go along. So if you're having trouble keeping light pressure, hold your hand back a little bit on the barrel of the pencil so you're not pushing the point into the paper, and you should do just fine. So once you've got everything color mapped in where you want it, you want to start to push your values. So now you want to start to go in and deepen all of your shadows and really start to give the pepper a little bit of form. We're still in the beginning stages, so you don't want to go too dark or push too hard on the pencils at this stage. We're going to keep adding more and more colors to get a really rich effect. So you don't have to go in real heavy with the color pencil. You want to continue light pressure all the way through the drawing until the final end stage. I'm going in with a little bit of light gray to desaturate a little bit of that pink color. Saturation describes the purity of a color. So something that was heavily saturated would be the color right out of the tube when you're talking about paint. And when you add that gray, it kind of dulls it down or desaturates it. So just to make it a little in simpler terms for you guys so you understand the language. So in essence, if you want to keep the same color or have the color hue, but you want to dull it down, lighten it up, change the intensity, you can add gray. So we're starting to gradually add in our details now, once that we've gotten everything mapped in, and we're just looking for all the little patterns that get repeated in the texture of the pepper, in the seeds, and we're just trying to get a little bit more detail going down now. So this pepper has a really brilliant red orangey hue to it, and I wanted to keep it really bright and clean, and so my bottom layers are all in these bright oranges. So I'm not using anything that's going to muddy up the color. I'm adding a lot of yellows and bright oranges in my undertones, and then I'm going to use some magenta to deepen up the shadows in the inside of the pepper part, where you're going to get a little bit more shadowed area to give it a little bit of depth, so that it looks like the pepper is a little bit hollow and there's some depth to that inside. So I have a lot of layers that have gone down now on our drawing, and I'm going to throw some OMS on a brush and just kind of smush all those colors together. You don't need to do this step. I like to do it. It makes it look a little bit more painterly, and when you add the OMS, it really brightens and pops all of that color. You don't need to do it. I only used a tiny bit on a brush, and I only really did the inside part of the pepper where our deepest, darkest shadow is, to get a really smooth blend. And that's the only OMS I use on this whole drawing, is just for that little inside part. And you, like I said, you don't need to do it. You can burnish towards the end to get a smoother blend, but really if you go in light layers, they really kind of blend as you go along. I just felt like I needed that magenta that we put down to kind of mix a little bit better with that inside part to get that hollowed out look. So here's where I'm going in with the electric eraser. I had a little problem with those seeds and that graphite showing through. Because they're going to be kind of a light yellow, the graphite is going to show through that color pencil. So I just went in quickly with my electric eraser, and I kind of just took all the graphite of the definition of the seeds out of there, and now we can go in and define them further with the color pencils, so we don't have that muddiness of the graphite showing through that light yellow. So the inside of the pepper is really textured, and it's really reflecting the light. So I went in and I just popped a few little marks to indicate the texture of the inside of the pepper with a Jelly Roll pen, and I will glaze over that so they're not bright white. I'm going to glaze over that with some more color pencil. And then at the end we can add some more if you feel like you need some more highlights in there, and then just give it a little glaze over so they're not glaring white. You can keep a few of them really bright white, but mostly those bright highlights aren't pure white. So I'm going in with my electric eraser and creating some textured areas in the cut part of the pepper where the stem is. You can really get some interesting textures and effects by just using your electric eraser, a stick eraser, even a kneaded eraser, to get pull out little specks of detail in those parts of the pepper. You can't always just go right in with the color pencil to get the texture that you're looking for. But if you use your tools and you can get creative with it, you can sometimes get some really cool effects with those erasers or some other tools. It's like when you're doing hair, you can use the indenting method, you can use an electric eraser, you can use a stick eraser to pull out little hairs and details. Same thing with this pepper. I'm using my tools to create a texture that you may not be able to get just in drawing. So I'm going back in and popping the last few highlights with my Jelly Roll pen, and then you'll see I'll go over and I'll glaze over it to soften them. But you do get a nice bright shiny look to the texture of the inside of the pepper. The last stage, I'm adding some graphite for my shadow, and I want to thank you guys so much for joining me. I really love doing this for you guys. Leave me a comment, give me a thumbs up, and consider subscribing to my channel. I wish you much love, luck, and light in 2022, and happy art.